Top 5 Alabama OC candidates. Bill O'Brien on his way back to the Patriots to try to calm down poor Mac Jones, who was not happy with Matt Patricia and Joe Judge. So, 5 OC candidates. I will say somebody mentioned Byron Leftwich. I think that would be a great idea for Alabama and for probably maybe even for Byron Leftwich, but I do think he'll get another NFL job earlier. But number 5, Dan Mullen. If there's a job that's going to get him out of the TV, I think this would be it, because if he really wants to, resuscitate and get back to that, I just don't think it's going to happen. But I do think that if there is the job that will get him to come back and be an OC, then I think it's Alabama and Nick Saban. That would be very telling about where he sees his career path going if he wants to continue to be on TV, which he was really, really good in his first year on TV, or get back into coaching. If you come, work for Nick Saban for a couple of years, you either want to be a head coach again or get back in the grind. But Dan Mullen makes a lot of sense. He's had success in the SEC, and he's a really, really good play caller. I just think with Dan Mullen, he got tired of the grind recruiting, and the guy who's the biggest rival in recruiting in his conference, at least, Kirby Smart, loves recruiting. He lives off it. He shoots it into his veins, and that's why he's not a head coach anymore, and he's doing great on TV. But I do think he'd be a good fit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about fit, but as far as like a guy capable of doing the job, yeah, I mean, I think he could be a pretty good OC for you. But like you said, there's some variables here. For one, does he want to coach?
Yeah.
I mean, does he want to coach, or does he want to make those big, fat TV paychecks without having the heartburn of, recruiting and, having to battle, with all of the big dogs in college football on a, daily, weekly basis? I mean, his gig seems pretty comfortable compared to what he was living previously. So, yeah, I mean, but if he's up for it, I mean, that's definitely a name that I think you at least kick the tires on. But, yeah, I question just his desire to coach again at this point, and also his, apparent I don't know if it's dislike, but apathy towards the recruiting side of things. That's not something you can do at Alabama. I don't care how good your assistants are, but, yeah, you need to be able to recruit there in Tuscaloosa. So that would be a couple of reasons why you'd hit the brakes on this one.
Yeah. Number 4, Greg Roman, the now erstwhile former Baltimore Ravens offensive coordinator. This kind of fits that profile perfectly. A guy who was thought of, he's been at Stanford, he's been a lot of different, I think Michigan as well. So he's been in college, he's been in the NFL. He needs to, revive his career a little bit, and going down and calling play much like his predecessor, Bill O'Brien, would be, or that, the guy who's leaving, Bill O'Brien. Greg Roman kind of fits that, and he's had a lot of success before, but maybe he needs to go down into Alabama and do the Coach Saban rehab program.
Yeah, I mean, maybe so. He's a guy that's super well qualified, that's for sure. So if they were to go this route, then I think that would make a lot of sense. Obviously, Baltimore's got some things that they, need to work on, and, that's a spot that's going to be very intriguing with their own right with Lamar Jackson and company, just kind of how that's worked over the next, foreseeable future. But, yeah, Greg Roman, I think, would be an excellent choice, just given his resume.
Yeah. Number 3, Jeff Lebby. This one, again, Craig, you talked about it earlier. He just got back to his alma mater. He's a huge part of what their plan is there, and what Brent Venables kind of in the new era of Oklahoma football is bringing in Jeff Lebby, who was in the SEC, as they move into the SEC in a couple years. So it would surprise me if he did, but I mean, it is Nick Saban calling you. So it's one of those things that, I think you'd have to consider. But he's a fit, and he runs the offense that Alabama runs now. So Jeff Lebby at Oklahoma certainly would do that.
Yeah, I mean, it would be super interesting, just given that years ago, Saban was not a fan of these styles of offenses,
Yeah.
And yet here he is because he's surrounded by it at this point. I mean, and they've dabbled in it themselves, but yeah, this would be super intriguing. I said earlier, I just wonder, because he went to Oklahoma, if there is a little extra pull to stay in Norman for a little while and help see this through for at least another year. But it's at some point, like, I mean, when's Lebby getting the head coaching call, you guys think? Is he anywhere close to that?
I don't know. I don't feel like he's as close now as I thought he was a year or two ago.
Because if he were to go to Alabama, let's say, and I don't think that he is, but let's say that he did, where else do you go after that?
Yeah.
Like, you can only be the OC at every great school before you finally, like, have to just sit somewhere or go up a level. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm kind of curious about with him. He's at, like, a top 5 all-time school right now. There's only maybe 4 places, for the sake of debate, that you could just bump up a little bit, and that would be Alabama for one of them, and maybe a couple of others. So, yeah, I'm just curious about that part of his career. Kind of the same thing with Kendall. Like, I don't know if Kendall, is he toxic? Is he ever going to get a head coaching job? Because of, toxic because of the name, obviously. But I wonder about with him because he's now been at multiple places. But, he's still, I guess, got room to go up. Lebby's at OU now, man. Like, it's pretty big. So I think that Saban will probably kick the tires, though at Ole Miss, he was good, but I don't know that he was great. And you're like, man, that's the offense that we have to have here. And how much of that was Kiffin to begin with,
Yeah. And look, I mean, with Oklahoma to Alabama, like, that is maybe one of the 2 moves you can make that, at least at this point, is inarguably not lateral. But everywhere else, like, if you said, like, Lincoln Riley made a lateral move to USC as far as
I think so.
History of the program. Now, there are some ancillary benefits to being in Southern California compared to Norman, Oklahoma, for sure, which kind of make it a little bit better, at least to the eye of the beholder. But, yeah, I mean, there's only like a couple that you could say, like, that's a definite step up from Oklahoma.
Yeah, Bama, Georgia, and then, it gets into the debate of, are we
Notre
talking
Dame,
about
lateral
location?
Move,
location. Okay, USC goes in there then. But then you can throw other schools in there that aren't quite on the level in other areas. But I mean, Lebby's an intriguing name because of the offense. And also he's got some history now in the SEC as well. And I was curious asking that question of where y'all think that his ultimate leap, to potential head coaching comes from. But, that would be a slight step up if he were to do that. But I do think he's going to stay at Oklahoma. We'll see, though.
I know OU is as among the ultimate 800-pound gorilla alpha dog blue bloods. But with all due respect, because of what Alabama's accomplished the last decade, which is better than what Oklahoma's accomplished in the last decade, that is a move up because you're under Saban. Because Venables right now is still to be determined as a head coach.
It's a move up if Brent Venables was also the head coach at Alabama, just based on the last 10 years, like you said. Yeah.
Number 2, Joe Brady, right now, currently the quarterback's coach with the Bills. But I think his time at the Panthers, kind of put a little dent because that was so short there, and they moved on. But he is now with the Bills, and Josh Allen. So maybe he wants, Saban wants to get some of that 2019 LSU magic on the team and bring in Joe Brady. He's been in the SEC. He's young. He's upcoming. So, depending on what he does, like Alabama and the NFL are kind of, again, that's kind of a lateral, like that's the lateral move. Alabama OC to NFL OC is kind of the only lateral move you have there, but it's worked for other guys. Look at Bill O'Brien. And so maybe Joe Brady comes in and becomes the play caller for Nick Saban. I think this would work out really, really well for all parties included.
How about his quarterback at LSU and what Burrow's done since 2019? Now, again, he was there the year with Burrow and got a lot of credit for that. But, boy.
That's why he got all of the credit. That's what his entire resume is built off of, basically, is the LSU team. And it wasn't just Burrow. It was 2 of arguably the best young receivers in all of football right now. Also on that team amongst, various other weapons of your choosing that were excellent. I mean, that's one of the all-time great teams, and then you see, what a lot of those guys are still doing in the league right now. So, I think, to try and rekindle some of that LSU magic would be interesting. I've seen his name thrown around a lot, but I'll be honest with you, until I started seeing his name, I completely forgot he existed. Since he went to Carolina, I forgot about Joe Brady. And I know that he's moved around and stuff, but, you talk about going from one of the hottest names in all of football to just completely off the radar. That was Joe Brady these last few years. So that would be that's one of those 2 just name wise that if you were to announce that, people would get a kick out of that. That would bring you some punch with that name.
Are you going to get Joe Brady 2019 because it's Burrow, or are you going to get Joe Brady because in the
And
last
Jefferson
couple,
and Chase
Yeah.
and all
Yeah.
those guys. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, in Alabama, you can get those
You
dudes,
can.
but that's
You
for
can.
sure. Number 1, Kliff Kingsbury. Look, if he wants to get off the beach in Thailand, this to me would be the match that maybe Saban wants, and then he could get back to the NFL. He could do kind of what he wanted. I do wonder if he wants to be an NFL OC for a little bit and stay in the NFL or go back to college. Kliff Kingsbury is still a very young dude, so it's not like he has to really consider all options right now. But I'll say that you mentioned that Saban doesn't like the offense, like he used to complain about it. I still don't think he likes it. I think he looks at like, look, I don't like flossing either, but if I don't do it and I go to the dentist,
That's a good grade,
he gets after me. So I'm going to do this because this is the way that I have to move forward. Yeah, he doesn't like it. I don't think he likes it. I think it's, eating his vegetables, going to the dentist, saying his prayers before he goes to bed. But he's in this. And if you want a guy who can run that offense, it is certainly Kliff.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, it all comes down to what Kingsbury really wants to do, and whether or not that's the route that he wants to take. I wouldn't be surprised one bit if he wants to just hang around in the NFL or take even a year off and weigh his options at a different date. But I think that's somebody that, as well, like I said, you kick the tires on that, at least if you're Saban, and I think that would be very interesting. And, man, you talk about like packing a wallop as far as recruiting interest and things. I mean, Alabama's going to have that regardless of who the OC is. But, man, all of a sudden you put Kingsbury in that spot, and I think that gives them a new coat of paint that would be, pretty cool for fans of Tuscaloosa. So, yeah, I think you absolutely look into it, but don't know where his heart lies right at the moment.
I tell you what, you mentioned the beaches in Thailand, and I'm thinking, let me go look at them. So I go to Google. Holy my God, the
What'd
views.
you think it was?
I knew, but I mean, this is spectacular. The color of the water, the images, the mountains around.
That's Asia in that area.
Man, he's got a lot of money in his bank. He's with his girlfriend. He may want to just chill out, but that would be a heck of a hire. So let me ask you this about Kingsbury. Did Johnny Manziel make his career?
I mean, he certainly lit
set
the
it
candle.
off.
Yeah.
All right, because he was at Tech with Patrick Mahomes, and a lot of people talk about Patrick, one of the greatest college players. He put up a lot of numbers. He was not one of the greatest college
Those
players. He
teams
was
were
really,
entirely
they were
forgettable.
all 500 or worse. Or maybe the one he finally made a bowl game. I could be wrong on that, but I know Tech fans will lose their mind. But he put up big stats. He was not a great college player. He was a stat guy, and Tech just never moved the needle. He was with A&M, and of course there was the Johnny Football that then landed everything else since that. Then all of a sudden he ends up being who was the coordinator? Where was he?
USC for
USC.
2 hours.
For 2 hours. I mean, Johnny Manziel had launched his career, and I think he knows what he's doing because he was a hell of a player himself at Texas Tech. But has he proven himself enough as a coach?
As a head coach, no. As a coordinator, I think, he'll be fine. I think that's one of the things that the Cardinals thought about Kliff Kingsbury. They thought, look, this guy clearly does not have an eye for defensive talent, but if we bring him to the NFL.
Well, that's Saban's job.
Yeah, but I mean, like that.
Yeah.
But
okay.
Like this guy, so he, as a head coach, he doesn't have that bone in his body in college. But in the NFL, we can get him a good defensive coordinator. We can essentially shut off him having to do anything other than nod his head and go, hey, great game plan, guys, and listen along. And then the players, we can do that for him because that's what we do. We're the front office. We pick the defensive talent. The problem with that is, one, he and Kyler Murray seem to have diverged in the woods as far as their overall goals for being in the same room. And then the Cardinals are famously not a great organization when it comes to drafting a bunch of people. They're good at one-offs, but as far as deep teams that really win, they've only had a couple of those in their history.
All right. Very nice. Kingsbury, Brady, Mullen, Lebby, and Roman.